What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I watched a really interesting little interview with, I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name, Siaka Massaquoi, a Hollywood actor, a black Hollywood actor who absolutely put the screws to Hollywood in a lot of the ways that, well, quite frankly, we've been pointing out here, not just me, but a lot of people that see through this like kind of fake woke purse puppy mentality that Hollywood has for black folks and for people in marginalized communities. They don't really care. It's a veneer of caring, and he excellently, called out people like Jordan Peele and people like Seth Rogan, who have already made all of their money, but now are coming out and saying things like, wow, white people, am I right? Even though they made all their money off this supposedly corrupt system in Hollywood. He talks a lot about being typecast as, playing, because he's black, he's got to, agents would tell him, well, you got to play a gangster or you got to play a bad guy. And, the idea that goes both ways, right? So yeah, typecasting him because of the color of his skin is messed up. And directors coming out and saying things like, I don't hire white people, or I don't want to tell white people stories. I'm not sure that, obviously that's not okay either. And he talks about, which I thought was really interesting. And I think that, this is a uniquely like self-conscious white person thing. But he talked about how, a lot of these people would say stuff like that to him. Like, oh man, I really just hate hanging out with whites. Am I right, my brother? And it's just so cringe. And in this article, which was put out, of course, by not of course, but put out by PragerU. So obviously consider the source. They are a right-leaning organization, so that's that. But the things that Siaka says are his own, and I thought it was really interesting to see someone in Hollywood come out and give him a roast from the inside, so to speak. So he recently detailed that. By the way, this is via Bounding into Comics and then PragerU. Not only is Hollywood a deeply bad industry, but that they actively discriminate against people who have political views on the right. Well, this is not difficult for us to see. It's more difficult to understand what we don't see. The people that don't get the roles and things like that. But you could look at Tim Allen. His show, I don't know the name of it, I'm so sorry. I know Last Man Standing, I think, was wildly popular. And then the original network it was on, I think CBS or NBC, because he's a conservative, they're like, ooh, yeah, we should probably get rid of this show that has, 10 million viewers every week, which was ridiculous. They canceled it. And of course it got brought back to Fox. Fox brought it on, and I assume it's still doing quite well. But that's because Tim Allen was a conservative. The idea that his television show was canceled because of viewership is one of the most hilarious lies that's ever been believed or perpetrated by people in Hollywood. And so when you see it happen to Tim Allen, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a perfect example of, somebody who's conservative getting, the short end of the stick. But he's already a super huge mega star. He did his stand-up stuff. He obviously had Tool Time, and he had a successful movie career and a wide variety of roles. And so he was almost like too big to cancel, but they still did it. He almost lost that show if Fox hadn't brought it up. Now, so Siaka begins the interview by talking about his family and his background growing up in Rochester, New York. He's also a first-generation American, I believe, too. From there, he details he took a class called Black Action Theater, which really got him interested in acting. As the interview progresses, Massaquoi, I keep wanting to say Massaquoi, but Massaquoi, I think, discusses the difficulty in breaking into Hollywood. He says, I don't think it was hard because I'm black. I think it was hard because I didn't play a certain type of characters, like didn't fit my energy. He then details that Hollywood is racist. He states, Hollywood is probably the most racist place I've ever experienced. Early agents that I would have would say, do you ever think about being the bad guy? You should hip-hop it up more. He then stated, what am I like slowly losing my heart every time I go in for these parts, every time I cater to how they want me to be, when I find a very bigoted approach. Massaquoi, then points to Jordan Peele and Seth Rogan. You have people like Jordan Peele saying, I'm not interested in telling white stories. I don't know what that means. You have Seth Rogan saying, I'm not going to hire white people anymore. All these people that have already made their money. And that's what we talk about that all the time. It's like once these clowns have $100 million in the bank, it's real easy to get woke, right? It's real easy to pander and pretend that, you know, Seth Rogan didn't hang around and enable his little buddy James Franco for all these years. Look into James Franco and his particular behavior. I don't think I've ever seen Seth Rogan speak out against that. Jordan Peele, other than, being a one-hit wonder in Hollywood, I mean, obviously I liked Key and Peele. I thought Get Out was above average, and then basically everything he's touched then has been absolute garbage. Maybe that's because he's more worried about the skin color of people he hires than actually producing a good product. I mean, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but, I thought his sophomore movie was quite bad. And I think we'll see. I think he's doing Candyman too, right? That will probably be a disaster. He continued, all these people did that in the same system that they are screaming about is super racist and super turned off. Now they are doing the exact same thing and stating it. They will say some of the most disgusting things around me, and I know they're only comfortable because I'm a black guy. I know it. I don't think it's funny that you say I don't hang out with white people and laugh. I don't think it's funny. That's terrible. It's okay if you don't hire a guy because he's a tall white guy. It's okay that you do hire a guy because he's a black guy. That's racist, plain and simple. I think that Siaka has the same kind of general opinion about the definition of that word that I do for sure, but that many people do. Very few people accept this like bizarre, super specific, like super broad definition of that term anymore. Where I'm from, and the definition that I accept and live by is that simply judging somebody by the color of their skin, and you could expand that out to however you want. Hiring based on that, your in-group of friends, dating. Well, dating, I mean, that's personal preferences, I suppose. But in particular, ascribing negative connotation to somebody or positive connotation to somebody simply because the color of their skin. It's just messed up. I wasn't raised that way, and I don't think most people would disagree with that definition unless you're like hyper progressive and you have this, we need to make everything racist. Later in the interview, he states, I feel like the Hollywood narratives trying to sell about black people is the same thing the media has been selling. Poor us. Our lives are in danger every day just because we're here living in this country. They see me as a black man and automatically go to victimhood or criminal. So that's how they start to control the culture, because that's all you see is your representation. Good point. Massaquoi continued. They have you on social media doubling down on it. They have you in the news doubling down on it, so you give them the entertainment so they can relate from it from an emotional standpoint. Then you do it in social media and the news media where you give them like, oh, look, here's the real stuff that's happening here. We're going to censor out what happens to anyone else and only show you this thing. I think he's talking about basically, selective reporting, right? We see this all the time right now. Minneapolis, people are getting a bunch of new LCD TVs when we don't really know the details of everything that happened. But the mainstream media likes to perpetuate this to divide people. So now it connects with that movie you watched, right? Nothing's changed since the civil rights movement. That's not the truth. He added, all my problems were me. They weren't because anyone else out there who didn't like me was setting me up to fail. Look, and I think he'd probably agree with this. There are bad people out there. There are people that view skin colors or ethnicities in a negative light for stupid reasons. But if you give people this invisible boogeyman to give them an excuse for failures, people are like current, electrical current. They take the path of least resistance. So what's easier? You know, accepting that you weren't good enough, that you didn't work hard enough, that maybe somebody was better than you, or that there's this invisible thing holding you back, right? There, you know, this is the patriarchy for feminists. This is, racism is everywhere for black folks. I think there's no more denigrating opinion to have of black folks than the bigotry, soft bigotry of low expectations. The idea that a particular race can't achieve simply because the color of their skin, giving, the building in this excuse is insulting. I don't understand how more, how do I say this? Look, I don't know a lot of black folks IRL. I live in a suburb, there might be, maybe 50 families here. But I could tell you this, when we interact, I don't view them as any different as anyone else. And I have a feeling if I asked them, although I wouldn't, because it's like that classic, like, hey, can you speak for all black people and answer me this question as a white guy? But like, I have a feeling that black folks don't like that either. I mean, so these progressives that think that, they're so progressive in giving black folks reasons to suck, it's not. He goes on, there's so much fear in this industry. If anyone is on the right, that you're done. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. It doesn't matter if you're gay. I've been removed from this and a couple of projects, and I've seen friends removed from projects, so people keep their mouths shut. Massaquoi added, for me, the fear was there too, but to keep my mouth shut so I can maybe get a job saying 3 or 4 lines on a co-star, like it doesn't add up anymore. I would say, he concludes by saying, I would say that there's been a call to action for anyone in Hollywood, anyone who may be watching this. Ask yourself what really matters in your heart. We have a chance to be different, and if you don't, you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. You have a chance today. Let's do it. Let's try, and your strength will then give strength to others. There's other people out there that you'll find, I guarantee it, and the sacrifice isn't as bad as you would think. Well, we can already see what like Shapiro's doing with Carano. I hate that there's like this alt industry for conservatives. It sucks. But if Hollywood's going to shut them out, then you have to prove that people actually don't care. Like I saw Twitter freaking out today that Sylvester Stallone joined a golf club in Florida, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's the worst. This discredits all of his great movies because Drumpf." Those people are a vocal minority. I wish Siaka all the best, and I'm happy he spoke out. And I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.